The Pulse of Spokane is a broad show that showcases many different things in our community, sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You. Well, welcome to another edition of the Pulse of Spokane. Kent Adams here. I hope you're having a good day. I hear it's sunny and bright and warm outside, right?
It is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Okay. So I'm stuck inside, either in an office with no windows or in a studio with no windows. Okay, I get it. I drew the short straw today. Hey, we're going to have Dan Clark on to talk about what he does in his business. And we're looking forward to that conversation. We'll be back right after some weather and some spots.
Today, Spokane's weather is going to be mostly sunny with a high of 85, while this week will bring mostly sunny weather. Tonight will be clear with the low of 55. Today, Coeur d'Alene's weather is going to be mostly sunny with a high of 80 and a low of 55. Cheney's weather is going to be mostly sunny with a high of 83 and a low of 53.
I'm Mike Conrad, running for state representative for the 4th Legislative District, and I'm committed to bringing new energy, a new direction, a new name, and more importantly, a new representative who's willing to go and trim the fat.
Paid for by Mike Conrad for State Representative, Republican.
Go Rogue this month with the 2020 Nissan Rogue and Rogue Sport. Great incentives to buy now with up to $3,000 in factory customer cash and 0% APR financing for 60 months on most 2020 Rogue Sport. If you need a little more room, save even more with up to $4,000 in factory customer cash on the 2020 Nissan Murano. So come see us at Wendell at the Y or WendellNissan.com.
Well, welcome back. Dan Clark, you're going to have to explain what it is. Explain yourself, right? Yeah. You're going to have to explain what it is you do because you're with D. Clark Risk Advisory. I'm guessing the D stands for Dan.
It does.
Okay,
it
well,
does.
that's good. But what is it that you do? Explain that.
Actually, it's an interesting work that I have kind of morphed into.
Okay.
My whole career was in financial services. I worked at Citigroup for a lot of years.
Sure.
Big conglomerate,
Right.
and got to do some work in Latin America, which was really enjoyable.
Fun.
I worked at Washington Trust here. I worked at Sterling here. When
Okay.
Sterling was not Umpqua, I worked
Yes.
at Sterling. So
Yes.
financial services has always kind of been my thing.
Okay.
And when I was close to leaving corporate America, I decided that I needed to do something to kind of facilitate education and training around financial services, but I wanted to focus
That
on
mystery out there, right?
it's different than being the banker.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's really something to it. And what I learned in my career was there's a lot of risk out there for a lot of people in the industry and a lot of consumers that have to use banking.
Right.
And if I could do something with risk management, including compliance and operational risk and bank secrecy and privacy and all of those things, if there's something I could translate all of that experience into and share with people,
Right.
there has to be some value in it. And I'm not
Yes.
talking monetary value, Ken. I'm really talking about value of providing a service.
Right.
So that's kind of what I do. I consult with people, with other financial institutions to see how they can strengthen their controls.
Okay.
Right now I do a lot of webinars for all kinds of
You
people.
had mentioned that before we went on, and because welcome to COVID-19 and the change that we're all experiencing, right?
Absolutely,
And you've been
absolutely.
able to adapt and do some different things.
I kind of was lucky. I adapted before we all adapted.
Ah, okay.
Because when I left corporate America, I started my business, and the first thing I did, I signed up with some friends in Mexico.
Okay.
BEXC Partners, and they do a consulting business, and we're now switching to Spanish webinars.
Okay.
But I signed up with a couple of firms prior to leaving Washington Trust, and I did webinars for auditors and risk managers and
sure.
executives. So when I left corporate America, that transferred with me. So I never had a kind of transition of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like,
Right.
unfortunately, so many people have
Yeah.
to deal with.
Yeah.
I was very blessed.
Including recently.
Very recently.
Yes.
But I was very blessed. So I do webinars. I do at least 2 a week. And we continue to have a lot of interest and a
Good.
lot of response to it. So it's working out very well.
You mentioned before we went on, you had one, was it last week, that had how many?
We had over 1,770
Wow.
participants. We had 3,600 registrants.
Okay.
And we had 50% of those actually participated live. And the funny thing is, I got 2 emails today in LinkedIn.
Yes.
And 2 people who listened to that webinar want me to present webinars for their groups in the next couple of weeks. So
Are you going to end up being too busy?
I hope not. I still
But don't
have to
complain with your mouth full.
No,
right?
exactly. Yeah. But the nice thing is my Zoom uniform
Yeah.
is like a shirt, and I can wear shorts or
Yeah.
jammies or anything else.
Yeah.
So it works out
Just
just
someone
fine.
drop something on the floor and have to reach over and get it.
I
Okay.
don't. I
We've
leave it
seen-
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I kept telling everybody, because for 2 months we did everything remote as hosts and guests and, and those kinds of things, and I put on our Facebook page, well, watch us and see what happens, see how many cats or kids in the background and everything else, and I think we had hardly any of that. And I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to be able to say, did you just see that behind me? Nothing happened. And so it was kind of just regular, like people were sitting across the table. And
Yeah.
So are you getting out to see people here and there? Are you able to do some of that?
Actually, don't. Everything's virtual.
Okay.
Most of my contacts are not in Spokane. Most of
Okay,
them
I
are
was gonna
outside
ask
of
you that
Spokane.
next, yeah.
And they're international. So I have a lot of people I know everywhere because of my city experience
Sure.
and others. And so everything's virtual, phone calls and video conferences, Zoom and GoTo webinars.
So you really
and
can wear shorts and a nice shirt.
I can.
Oh, okay.
But I do have to shave in the morning. That's the
Oh,
only bummer. I can
know.
go 3 or 4 days without shaving,
Yeah.
and then I got a webinar. I got to look decent.
Yeah, I hear you. I had to do that the other day, and yesterday I was delivering checks because people bought political commercials on our station, but we also help them buy on other stations. And political, you have to pay up front. So I'm running around town yesterday, dropping off checks to almost nobody's at
Yeah.
their station. I mean, welcome to the world. And I thought, okay, I'm bringing them a check. I don't have to shave. Who am I kidding? I could wear a T-shirt and shorts, right? I'm giving them money, bought their product or service. So that was kind of fun. But all right. So what's been the one thing that you've really learned in the last couple of months with all the formal changeover with not only what you've been doing, which you had started to do beforehand, but as you talk with people, do the webinars and so forth, what's kind of struck you as, well, that's different than before?
I'm not sure that anything has struck me as different than before.
Okay.
I think what has happened, at least to me in my situation, is I have received confirmation that what really makes the world tick
Yeah.
are people.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't get to shake hands, and when I was in
You
Latin,
miss that too?
I miss it. In
Yes.
Latin America, we used to give abrazos,
Yes.
hugs, and I miss that. And so when I talk to people, it's the conversations before the webinars and after
yes.
that really enrich and enliven
Right.
the whole situation.
Right.
And it just, I miss that personal contact. So I try to do it virtually as other people do. And I
Right.
think that's the biggest thing that is confirmed for me. People are important, and every person is important.
Yeah.
And they all have a story. Every single
Oh,
one
gosh,
has
yes.
a story. And I think one of the things that has happened is more people are willing to share information
Yeah.
with strangers.
Well,
now.
yes, because sometimes those are the only folks we get to see. We don't get to
Yeah.
see some of our family members, like grandkids and others, in
Yep.
person and so forth. And I've had at least 2 that I can think of in the last couple of months when we were doing everything, in my case, hosting from home, but also working from home and all of that. And one fellow I remember very specifically, because I got to meet him like 2 weeks ago now, who said, let's just postpone our conversation until I can actually sit at the same desk with you and talk. I miss that, Kent. And I'm going, all right. So we postponed stuff for a couple of weeks, or a month probably, so that we could actually do it in the same room.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we're missing that.
We are. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
When I first lived here, we lived here for about 3 years when I worked with Sterling, and then we
Okay.
went back east, and then I came back here to basically retire. But when we lived here the first time,
Yeah, how's that working out?
actually, I'm not retired, but I live here.
Yeah,
so
that's what I
great.
mean.
But the first time we lived here, I used to take the bus from Hastings downtown.
Okay.
And so I'd sit in the front of the bus, and it started off with a couple people sitting in the front, and I'd interject conversations that
Yeah.
they were having
Yeah.
because I tend to be nosy. So I'd start talking to them, and these two people, they became kind of friends
Yes.
on the bus. I worked at a bank. They worked downtown at the county courthouse. And then all of a sudden, after about 4 or 5 months, we had 15 people that sat in the front of the bus and was part of our breakfast club. And that's
Yeah.
not the best part of it. I'm going to
Oh,
get to
shoot.
that. What ultimately happened, here were people in Spokane, all different kinds of people. We had a
Yes.
chef, we had a jeweler, we had a banker, we had a college student that taught kids how to speak for deaf
Right.
people. So we had people from a retired person, courthouse. We all got together that 7:30 bus, and on Monday mornings, we would each take turns cooking something for the breakfast club. Whether it's a cinnamon roll, a cookie, or something, we
Right.
bring it for the group. We became the breakfast club on the bus.
That's funny.
And the very last session I had before I left, when we rode the bus driver actually bought us donuts.
Fun.
And
maybe he thought you were all cops.
Maybe,
I'm kidding.
I don't know, but you can't eat on the bus.
Yeah.
And we didn't eat, but he had the big box of donuts there, and it was for the breakfast club.
That's
It's that
funny.
personal contact that we have with people from all diverse situations
Yeah.
and don't have anything in
But you
common.
might not otherwise meet.
And that's the hardest part with
Yeah.
COVID right now, is we don't get to meet those people face to face and see who they are.
Yeah, you can walk downtown and not see people for a while.
Absolutely.
And I remember, working from one end of downtown to the other, having to go around groups and things
Yep.
and so forth, and especially when we had our studio downtown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a changed world. I hope some of that, how it was before, really does come back, though.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think
it
so
will.
too. It's going to take a while, but yeah.
Although I have to admit, I do look better in a mask. That's what my wife says. I'm much more attractive now that I have a mask.
I'll have to use that line. Okay, I'm going to steal that from you. Okay, so who takes your webinars?
Right now, people who take my webinars are typically auditors,
Yeah.
People who work in audit in all the different
Okay.
financial institutions, compliance officers and staff, control officers and staff, executives, members of boards of directors, because they're educative.
Yes.
So it really helps people take a different perspective of what risk are and how you can control it or manage
Right,
it.
right.
Because you don't want to control risk, you want to manage it so you can still make a good profit. So it's a wide diversity of people in different roles within financial services and other institutions. Healthcare, we've had healthcare, we've
Maybe
had
even nonprofits.
energy, we've had some nonprofits. I don't know if you remember, you may not have known this, but when I worked at Washington Trust, I created and Washington Trust sponsored a risk symposium that we did for 3 years here.
Oh, fun.
We had 200 people from outside of Spokane come in to participate in that. Now that has converted to a virtual conference and webinars,
Yeah.
but even that was kind of like a precondition or a
Sure.
pre-education of what I was going to do
Well, I
after
was
I
going to
left
say,
corporate.
what a great place to test some things out. too,
Exactly.
So, do you charge for these webinars?
Some of them are free and some of them are charged. So I get paid, so the companies I work for charge. I don't
okay.
charge, but we have done some free ones. The free ones have a lot more response for some reason than the ones you have to pay for. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that people listen, and I love the free ones because it really, that's where we get the most return for the buck. And because it's free and I have a sponsor for those free ones.
Right.
It's just, it's to me, it's remarkable to be able to share experiences with other people who are coming up and learning and wanting to learn.
Yeah.
And as we get older, that's all really we can offer.
Did you have to put up with much with my friend Pete Stanton?
I love Pete.
Isn't he a great guy?
Pete and Jack, one of the things that's interesting, banking is not we all talk about it should be a character
Yeah.
institution. Most of the banks I worked for had characters,
Yeah.
but did not have character. Washington Trust, Pete and Jack,
Yeah.
probably the two finest individuals
Yeah.
I've worked for.
Yeah.
and they absolutely have the integrity and the character that are ideal
Yeah.
for an
And they
institution.
care about this community.
They do.
They really do.
That's actually what brought me back here
Yeah.
from Connecticut
Yeah.
was because it was with them.
And Sterling in the old days did too.
Sterling was a good institution. I worked with them when they were close to failure, and I helped bring them back, and that was a really rewarding
Oh, boy.
experience. A lot of stress.
Yeah, no kidding.
I used to be like Santa Claus, and now
Yeah.
look at me. I lost it all because of the stress. But it was a good
Try
institution.
running a TV station. No, you'd be smarter not to do that.
I think so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, if people want to learn more, how can they get in touch with you and find out about your webinars and everything?
You can certainly see me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I'm also at dclark.org.
Okay.
So you can find me there, and you'll see me advertised. I get advertised by all the companies I work for out there.
Good.
And bexcpartners.com if you want to learn Spanish and listen to them in Spanish, and just say, hey, I listened to a webinar in Spanish. Put that on your bucket list and check it off.
Okay.
Join us
okay,
there.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I have enough trouble with English.
So do I.
Okay, but I'll have to admit, back in high school, I think it was my sophomore year, I actually had better grades in Spanish than I did in English.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, if you ask me anything, no, I don't remember. That was 57 years ago, okay?
Who's counting?
Yeah, right. Well, I do sometimes, but I have to use both hands and toes.
And toes.
Thank you for coming on today. Loved what you're doing. I think it's just fascinating to the way you're helping companies and individuals and their fiduciary responsibilities too. And I mentioned nonprofits because we have all served on nonprofits, and yet where do they get in trouble the most? Not asking some of the pertinent questions about the balance sheet and some of the other kinds of things that go on. They just hope things are good until there's a crisis. And
Exactly.
there's almost always going to be a crisis, whether it's self-induced through the organization or COVID or something else out there that you need to know what questions to ask and how to listen to those answers.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being on. And thank you for watching The Pulse of Spokane. Hey, everybody, have a good day, okay?
When we opened the doors the first day, we started with a counter full of maybe a dozen selections of a dozen cupcakes. We sold out, and it just went crazy from there. I'm Sally. I run Sweet Frosting's Blissful Bake Shop in downtown Spokane. It's almost 40 years of baking for me. We now do between 1,000 and 2,000 cupcakes a day. The variety of cupcakes is kind of like the variety of services that STCU provides for us. Since we opened this site in 2014, they've been our banker. We are producing for 4 stores right here, so we have 35 to 40 employees at any one time. There's an STCU close to virtually every one of my stores, and every time I get a new employee, that's the first place we send them. STCU is such a good fit. It's just so convenient for me to have them as neighbors. They are always so pleasant and always so helpful, and we have a lot of little needs. They've always been behind me 100%, so it's a good thing to have that partnership.
Here at River Ridge Hardware, we carry a great selection of Krylon brand spray paints, Color Master, general purpose, the Rust Protector for taking care of metal, Fusion for taking care of plastics, and the Super Max that can take care of it all.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and homes for you.